Talk about the black. This is my black 104 car, and I'm trying to set this one up for outdoor racing for rubber tires. Good old rubber tire. So basically, it's the black kit with some different things on here. This is the narrow car, like the modern style F1 car. I was talking about the wide car before. It's a little more typical what people are racing for TCS for a 104 car. So basically, I'm trying to set this thing up for outdoors, to get more traction in the car. To take advantage of some of the things I learned when I was at the TCS race out there in California last year. And just to go over some of the things that are a little different from the kit with the black car. I put the new heavy pivot plate in the back. And it is definitely heavy. It's made out of steel or something like that. That you can really feel the weight concentrated right in this area of the car, which I'm sure is going to be helpful because most of the time we were putting lead here and here anyway. So that's actually a good thing. Also, you might be able to tell this is the split upper deck. The two parts of the upper deck are apart now. And the thing about that is, there's places for posts here and here, and here and here. Or you can run it just with these two screws right here. On top of that, as you can see right now, I have no damper plate on the car. You can mount the damper plate, and then you can mount the shock forward in this hole. I've put the shock in the optional hole with no damper plate directly to the rear pod. Obviously, it's going to allow a lot more freedom to move back and forth, and the shock is the only thing dampening the action of the pod. I don't know if that's going to be good or bad or otherwise. I know that last year at the Tamiya race, a lot of times people were talking about running nothing on the plate or super light grease on the plate. That was what was recommended to me later on. So I think that in a low traction situation is probably very beneficial, especially rubber tires. Now, just to kind of put the car together, I put two posts here and two screws in with O-rings. So the car still does have a little bit of, you can feel it flex, and these here you don't screw down into this. It's just one long screw, so I've adjusted the nuts so that there's a little bit of play so that the chassis can twist slightly. I don't know if you can really, it's hard to see the amount of articulation it has, but it's not a whole lot. It does move a little bit, but it's hard to tell on video. Now you could also just run these, or you could run nothing at all, besides these two screws to hold the shock basically in place. I don't know what's going to work best necessarily. I will say that generally with the F103, first off, the short deck, this is an F103 top deck. It stretches, front to back on the car. They used to sell basically what was a short deck, which is basically just this. And putting that on your car would actually make the car become lazy. It would reduce a lot of the steering in the car. And I would imagine there would be a similar effect on this car, that you're going to take away some of the steering, which is good for rubber tires, especially at that Tamiya track where you were really trying to get the car stable. The biggest problem was getting the car to launch or to put the power down. In my opinion, that was the biggest problem. So that would be a good solution. And this is something you can play with too, just changing these screw. You could go from here to here. You could run nothing. You could run, so it remains to be seen what will be the best solution or setup there. And same thing with the damper disc. I don't know if just letting this thing cycle side to side freely is the best idea or not. Again, I would think though that for maximum traction it probably would be, so that would be probably the way to go. The other thing too is I'm not sure how this will be handled. In the instruction sheet for this upper deck, they actually show you mounting the electronics straight to the chassis and eliminating your little wings here for electronics. I know they wanted everybody to run the wings last year, but I don't know if that's going to change for everybody or if only if you're running this part on the car. So that's all stuff to be determined later on, I suppose. Also I wanted to mention, I have right now the normal graphite axle on the back, which is cool, but some guys, this is actually an Exotech car, but some people run the steel axle in the back for added weight on the rear of the car. The other advantage can be the flywheel effect from having a steel axle. Once you get the thing up to speed, it's going to want to stay up to speed, so it might help the car carry some momentum, or at least have the motor carry some momentum. So that's something to look at too. That's another tuning type option. I guess we can kind of move to the front end of the car more. I had done some videos about the front end of the car before, some stuff I had tried. First off, generally, if your car's too reactive or too much steering or just too much front end, not stable enough. These are right here, these are the 3.5 arm or the 3.5 offset arm. That's generally a good idea to run that arm. If your car's too twitchy, too much steering, too goofy, you can run that, and that will help to calm the car down and help it go in a straight line. Now I have some ideas as well from Race and Foam Tire. Generally, I don't know, it's maybe somewhat hard to see, but I've got the camber plate now is dropped down directly onto the arm. Again, you can see the difference here. This is the camber plates stood off from the lower arm. On this one, the camber plate is directly on the arm. So what that does is it changes the angle. You can actually see almost a little bit of I don't know, the upper arm is flat, almost going down towards the outside, which is not really what you want. But when the car sits on it in its suspension, it's going to be almost perfectly level in this position. But what I'm mostly trying to do here is you want to lower the upper arm, because as this, you can see on this one, you can tell the difference. The upper arm is a lot taller. There's a lot of difference here to here, from this point to here. The way this is set up, it's basically taller. On this car, this difference is a lot shorter. It's a smaller difference, and what that does is it doesn't it makes the car a lot calmer to drive. The car doesn't want to act crazy. Basically what happens is the higher this is, the more the car has a tendency to want to screw itself into the ground. Even if this arm is level, that's a tendency, in my opinion, I think. So what I try to do is just get this arm lower, have it more parallel, because obviously, if there's any kind of rake in this arm is going to produce more camber gain. It's going to make the car more aggressive off center. Whereas if you have this very parallel arm, the very parallel arm will cause the car to be calmer and smoother. What I also like to do is I stack the excess ride height shims, so you always have the same amount of shims. You're just changing where they stack on top or on the bottom of the arm. You can see I have a bunch stacked up on top here. So what we're trying to achieve is a car that has a good balance to drive. And these two positions, the changes up and down, you can do in 0.5 millimeter increments and be able to feel them. Well, foam tire is able to feel 0.5 millimeter increments. Obviously, with this, hopefully what you'll be able to do is to have a calmer car, have an easier to drive car, but not sacrifice the steering. Because I felt that I had as much steering as anybody with foam tires, and I think it's going to carry over into rubber, set up this way, but it's an easier to drive car that way. The other thing too is, the nice part, if you feel that you don't have enough steering overall, you can still use your camber plate and add camber to the car, but not that so that it will have a X amount of static camber, but not gain camber through the suspension travel. And when you don't gain camber, that's really what makes the car overly aggressive. Is as you roll into the turn, you gain too much camber. That'll make the car get darty or weird or oversteer. So what you're trying to do is, again, you can almost use the height of the arm, and by that also the outer arm. You can use that to sort of set the level of aggression of the car, and then use the static camber to sort of set how much overall kind of steering feel it's going to have. So I think that would be a good plan to sort of let the car, have the amount of steering it needs to be fast, but at the same time not make the car, bananas, not make the car too hard to drive. One other thing I want to point out as well, this height, the more of the difference between the height of this and the height of this ball stud, the more the arm gets tilted forward, that will sort of change the amount of aggression in the center of the corner. Because this car's, to me, will wash out in the middle of the corner sometimes, and especially with rubber tires, that may be a problem. So, as you either add shims to this or remove shims from this, as this arm goes up like this, increases this angle, the more the car is going to steer in the center of the corner. And that was one thing I noticed, especially on foam tires, that center of the corner could just be set by raising the back of this arm, and again, it would leave this part of the suspension alone, which didn't cause the car to be too. You wouldn't change the aggression level. Let's put it that way. But this could be used to kind of tune the center of the corner, this height. So those are some things as far as some preliminary things I'm trying to tune as well. And also the servo, that I'll probably run it like this. The servo kind of canted forward a little bit with the output shaft forward. I found that's probably the best way to run the car for this particular front end. So those are some things for starting out the outdoor season with, and hopefully we'll find out what happens.